शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद
And by the way, the
लाल
journey
मेरो
of
है
there's the journey of peace. They should send some with the cover with Pujya Swamiji, some with the cover of Ganga. There's two different ones.
गोपाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल
Great.
मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है
Acha, of the those ones. Okay, cool. Good. Okay.
बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है
Okay.
शिवा के
The hotel in
बिहारी
Delhi,
नंद
in
लाल
Mumbai.
मेरो है शिवा के
Okay. Fantastic.
नंद लाल मेरो है
How you doing? Good.
बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है गोविंद
How are you? I'm good. Let's sit tonight around 8. I'm going to see Pavani immediately after Satsang because then she has to go catch a train from Haridwar. And then we'll sit right after that. Wonderful. So I think right after Satsang, just grab a quick bite and then... Wonderful. Sure. But yeah, I'm really...
शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है शिवा के बिहारी नंद लाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल मेरो है गोविंद मेरो है गोपाल मेरो है हसतो सर्गमय तमसो ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय everyone together शांति शांति शांति
Welcome to Satsang, everyone. We'll start, as always, with a question that's come in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. You've got it. We'll start with you. Why start with something else that came in advance? We'll start with you. But can you come here? You can come sit here? Good. You can come sit here. Yeah. What's your question? If you go close enough, then you can get it in my microphone.
Why do you have to be veg?
Huh?
Why do you have to be veg?
Why do you have to be veg? Oh, good question. Okay. So, why are we vegetarians? So there's a lot of reasons, okay? Now, let me ask you something. Let's say that you were walking down the street, okay? And you see a boy on the side of the road, and you can tell he's very, very poor. And that boy has a piece of bread okay? And he's eating the piece of bread. But let's say you also were a little hungry. Not hungry like he is, of course, because you had breakfast that morning. But you are a little hungry. Maybe it's lunchtime. Would you take the bread from his hands? Why?
Because he will not get anything to eat.
Right, exactly. And so that would not be nice to take the bread from him, right? Okay. So one of the main reasons that we are vegetarian is because when we grow our wheat and our rice and our corn, those things, you can do two different things with them. Number one, you can feed people. So you can make bread and you can make pasta, you can make rice, you can make chapatis, you can make all those yummy things. Or you can take all that and you can feed it to the cows or the pigs or the chickens who become hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets. Now, here's the problem. When we feed that to the animals, they don't become a hamburger overnight. It's not like they eat some food and then automatically it just transforms into a hamburger, like Cinderella's chariot transformed into a pumpkin. It's not quite like that. They eat it and then they digest it. Like when we eat food, we digest it. And then we go to the toilet the next day and it comes out and only a little bit stays inside of us, right? And it gets in our blood and our tissues. So the animals keep eating food for many years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. And then finally, they get killed and cut up, and they become our hamburgers and our hot dogs and our chicken McNuggets. So what that means is that if I'm eating non-veg, we know already I'm being mean to the cow and the pig and the chicken. That we know. Because obviously to kill somebody and eat them is not nice, right? If I say, oh, you look so yummy, can I just eat your ear off like that, right? So that might be a nice thing to say, but it wouldn't really be a nice thing to do, to eat your ear off or eat your nose off, right? You might tell me, well, you can kiss me, but don't actually like start eating my body, right? Okay. So we know that eating the body of the animals is mean to the animals. But it's a lot more than that. It's mean to that boy who doesn't have any food. Because every day, do you know, tens of thousands of children like you, they die because they don't have enough food. But we actually grow in this world enough grain. Grain means what we call anaj. So our wheat or our rice or our corn or our soy, all of the different grains that we grow, we actually grow enough to feed 10 billion people. Now, do you know how many people there are on planet Earth?
More than a lakh.
More than a lakh, yeah, many more. There's more than a lakh in Rishikesh. A lakh is 100,000, by the way. It's Indian numbering system. So yeah, there's more than a lakh in Rishikesh. Do you know how many people in the whole world?
I don't know.
Okay, that's okay. There's a little over 7 billion people in the world. Okay, so that's 700 crore, right? Somebody good with Indian math? Is that right? 7 billion is 700 crores, right? Okay, so there's more than 700 crore people on the earth, but we actually grow enough anaj every day for 1,000 crore people. So are there more people or is there more food?
More food.
You are so smart. Yes, exactly. Lots more food. So why are people, children like you, why are they dying of hunger?
Because they don't get food.
Right. And why don't they get the food?
Because they can't afford it.
Well, this is not actually the problem. Yes, if they had money, they could go to a supermarket, and no matter if it was expensive, they could buy it. But the problem actually is that most of the anaj that we grow in the world, it doesn't go to people. It goes to the animals who we will kill to make hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets. So if I have, let's say, a handful of wheat or a handful of corn, I can either feed that hungry boy, or I can feed it to a cow or a pig or a chicken and let them digest it and let them go to the toilet and it comes out, and then they eat more the next day, and then they keep eating and keep eating. And out of all that anaj I give them, I get this much meat. And that much meat is bought by only a few people. So, can you think of 15 of your friends? Can you think of 15 people you know and you like? Maybe in your class in school? Take a moment, think in your mind. Think of 15 people you like. Okay? Tell me when you've got them in your mind.
I got
Oh, great. Okay. So, if I have 16 kg of corn, let's say. If I have 16 kg of corn, I can give every single one of you, 1 kg of really nice corn chapatis. You like corn chapatis? Good, yeah, I do too. So I can give every one of you 1 kg of good, yummy corn chapatis. Or I can take that corn and I can feed it to cows and pigs and chickens. And at the end, I can feed one of you hamburger. Only one of you. Now what that means is, if I feed you, those 15 friends of yours, you know what they get?
nothing.
Nothing. Now that's not very nice to them, is it? Because they must be hungry also, right? So do you think it's nicer if we feed corn to everybody, or rice to everybody, or chapatis to everybody, or pasta to everybody, or hamburgers to only one? Which is nicer?
Feeding corn and
To everybody, right? So that's why we choose to eat vegetarian, because we only have a certain amount of anaj. And we have to choose, either we feed it to people, or we feed it to the animals, and then out of 16, we only get 1. 16 kgs of grain gives us 1 kg of hamburgers. But 16 kgs of grain gives you 16 kgs of bread or rice or pasta. Let me ask you another thing. Do you like trees? Today, Pujya Swamiji gave you all a tree. Did he give you a tree? Were you giving trees to people today? In the arti, I saw you. Right there, you were standing there when he was giving trees, right? Okay, so we'll make sure you get one before you go also. Now, trees are very, very important. Do you know why trees are so important?
because they also have a life.
Because they also have a life. Yes, exactly. But do you know that trees also give us life? Did you know that? So someday in school, you are going to learn something really beautiful, which is trees give us life. We need oxygen to live. When you go, you're taking in oxygen. Where does that oxygen come from? The trees give it. The trees give it. And those trees give us life. But do you know that the people who are making the hamburgers out of the cows are cutting down all the trees because they need some place to put all their cows? And so in our rainforests in South America, have you heard of the Amazon?
Yes.
Oh, have you been?
No.
It's really beautiful. Someday maybe we can take a trip to the Amazon. Would you like that? Yeah, me too. So the Amazon rainforest is being cut down 1 acre every second. Think about it. Every time I clap my hands, a whole acre of trees is being cut down. And you know why? Just to make hamburgers. Just to make hamburgers. So this is why we are vegetarian. Because number 1, we don't think it's nice to kill animals, because animals also feel. But number 2, because we don't think it's nice to let other people starve, because they're our sisters and brothers also. And number 3, because we really like trees, and we really like oxygen, and we think those things are more important than hamburgers. Does that make sense? Do you know about global warming? Have you heard about climate change and global warming?
Yes.
You've already heard about that. How old are you?
7.
Wow. Good. Wonderful. So do you know that according to the United Nations, which are people you can believe, the industry that makes your hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets, what we call animal agriculture. So agriculture, but not agriculture that gives us Loki and pumpkin and nice veggies, but agriculture that gives us hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken McNuggets. They are the single greatest contributor, the biggest reason why we have climate change. So here we are, everybody doing everything they can, turning off lights every time we walk out of rooms and putting low flush things in our toilets and our showers and turning off taps while we brush our teeth and doing everything we can to save water and save energy and not pollute the environment. But the single greatest reason, the biggest reason for climate change is this production of non-veg food. So now what do you think we should do?
Be veg?
Yeah. You could leave her here with me. You want to stay here? You can teach everybody every night why we should be veg. Thank you. Wonderful. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Should we see if anyone else has any other questions? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Then I'll take one that's come in advance and then we'll open it up if there are any here. Okay. People try to understand the divine, means God, and love with logic. How do you deal with that? Logic is wonderful. Logic is a product of a well-functioning mind. And the mind is a wonderful tool. A lot of us, when we get on a spiritual path, we somehow think that the mind is the problem. The mind is just a tool. It's a tool that can be used well, or it's a tool that if it's out of control, can ruin our lives. I mean, take fire. If I need to cook food, fire is a wonderful tool. But if fire is out of control, burns our homes, burns our forests, the mind is the same. It's a fantastic tool. So logic is wonderful. Logic is something that we absolutely should use. So many decisions I make, you sit and you list your pros and your cons, okay? What are the pros of doing it this way? What are the pros of doing it that way? What are your plus and minus? How do you decide? Logic is great. The problem is the jurisdiction of logic, the jurisdiction of the mind, is only things that the mind can understand. Means, number one, only things we are separate from. The mind can only understand that which it is separate from. So I can understand anything that is separate from me. I can understand this paper, both I can read what's on it, but I can also understand the paper itself. It's an A4 size, it's white, could tell you a lot of things about the piece of paper. We can understand anything that is separate. Can tell you about my body, can tell you about things in the world, math problem, whatever it may be. But the mind doesn't function to understand self. It has to hold something separate to look at it and understand. And so the dilemma becomes using a tool that by definition can only understand that which is separate from it. To understand aspects that at their core require connection. Love is not something to be understood. Love is something to be experienced. The question is not, how can I do a study of love and write a report on love? The point is, how can I feel love? A report on love is a very poor substitution, regardless of how brilliantly written it may be, is a very poor substitution for actually experiencing love. Like a menu is a poor substitution for a meal. It just describes it. You don't actually benefit from it in any way. And so when we try to use logic of the mind to talk about the two things that the minute the mind gets in, you lose them, is a big dilemma. So if let's say I'm giving you a big hug over here. Can I give you a hug? Is that okay? Okay. So let's say I'm giving you a big hug over here. So there's two ways I can be doing this. Either I can just be in the moment. And it's very beautiful. Or I can be here thinking, I'm giving this sweet young girl a hug. And I could think all about it, and I can, think about what her t-shirt feels like. Oh, this is a cotton t-shirt. And if we were in a relationship and we had issues in our relationship, I could be thinking about, oh, she's not hugging me back enough. I'm hugging her more than she's hugging me. Clearly, I love her more than she loves me. And my mind can do all kinds of things. Or maybe we have a different issue. Maybe, oh my God, we shouldn't be hugging. Or maybe it used to be nicer when we hugged. Or maybe I'd rather be hugging somebody else. So my mind does all kinds of things during which, even though my arms may be hugging, I'm not actually benefiting from that hug because I'm not in the hug, I'm in the mind. The arms are doing it, but I'm not having an experience of loving union and connection. I'm in my mind. when we are experiencing love and you go into the mind, you lose that experience of love. And it happens sometimes without us meaning it, where you're in the midst of, oh, and suddenly the mind clicks in and you're already out of it. The minute the mind clicks in, you're no longer in the love. And this is where it's so important to learn how to allow the mind to be quiet so that in the moments where you just want to be, and it may be hugging someone, it may be watching the ocean on the beach, it might be meditating, it might be painting, it might be making music, it might be doing anything that connects us to spirit, soul, consciousness, love. We benefit only when we're not in the mind. Similarly, of course, with divinity or God. You can't understand God. Not because God isn't understandable, but because our tool is not good enough. It's not the fault of love or divinity that logic can't get them or our minds can't get them. It's that the tool of the mind as we have it now, the evolution that our cerebral cortexes have gotten to this date in evolution, is not high enough to be able to understand love or God. We've got science down, we've got technology down, we've got so much down. And who knows? 100 years from now, 200 years from now, maybe our brains will be able to also see and hear God. The fact that we can't experience God with our senses, I believe, is due to the fact that just our tools aren't quite good enough yet. And there was a time hundreds of years ago where if you sat in a math class or a science class and the teacher said, so is the earth round or flat? And you said, flat. The teacher would say, right, you'd get 100% on that. Now, do you know, is the earth round or flat?
Round.
Right. So even 7 knows that today. But go back a couple hundred years, and the truth was it's flat. Simply because our tools weren't good enough to tell us it was round. The earth obviously hasn't changed shape, but our tools have changed. There was a period of time where if your science teacher said to you, so what revolves around what? And you said, well, everything revolves around the earth. See, I can see it. I stand here. The sun is going. The moon is going. Everything is going. Everything's going around. The planets, everything's revolving around the earth. Now we have better tools. We understand, oh, actually we are revolving around the sun. We and the planets are all revolving in different orbits around the sun. Only the moon revolves around. But that's not because the solar system has changed. It's because our tools have gotten better. And so science, logic, the mind is a tool. And it's a tool that up to this moment, it's really good with everything it's separate from. It has no ability to measure, to see, to understand, to know about that which it's not separate from. And that's where we have to rely on our hearts. Because luckily we don't only have a mind, we have a heart. And the heart is what enables us to know love and to know God. And so that's why it's so important to cultivate both. The mind for understanding that which we are theoretically separate from, not really separate, but at least as we move through the world, it helps to hold things in a way that we can understand them logically. And our hearts, our intuition, because when I say heart, I don't mean impulsive emotions. I mean our deep, intuitive understanding and experience and awareness, knowing, you could say. We need that to know everything else, to know love, to know God, to know the self. Because I have to be evident to myself. So I know you because of my senses. I know that you are sitting here next to me because I can see you. And if I close my eyes, I can still feel you because my arm is on you. But if I take my arm off, I can still hear you because you're moving a little bit. So I still know you're here. But if you stop moving and I keep my eyes closed and I'm not touching you, I have no way of knowing that you're still there. Are you still there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. But I don't have any way of knowing that. But my lack of knowing doesn't change the fact that you're here. It just means I don't know you're here. I don't have any way of interacting with you. In the same way, the divine is there. God is there. People say, prove it. Well, you've got yourself into a catch-22 because the only way we know how to understand, how to know, is our five senses. And every time we're in a situation where I can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, it isn't evident to me. And I jump to the conclusion, well, therefore it must not exist. But as we've just proven, even if I can't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch you, you're still here. You don't change just because I can't know that you are here. We just need to develop better tools. That's the connection. Because if I get really quiet, I can feel you. Not with my body, because my body's not touching you. But if I get really, really quiet, if I close my eyes and I sit really still and I get really quiet inside, there's an energy of you and there's an energy of me. And I can feel you. But I have to get really quiet to be able to feel that because it's not my five senses energy. It's not like you're close enough to my skin that I can, feel the wind of you. But I can feel the energy of you. And that's a tool we need to cultivate more, is that we talk about a sixth sense. There's, I think, a lot more senses than five. But it's okay if we just use sixth as an umbrella term for everything else. All of our other ways of knowing. And that's how we know things, other than with the five senses, in our hearts, in our intuition, in our energy. Because if you can only rely on your five senses, we miss out on knowing a lot in the world. So use logic, use the mind. But just don't let it brainwash you into thinking that it has jurisdiction over every aspect of your life. It has no jurisdiction over love and no jurisdiction over God, divinity, spirit, connection, consciousness, all the good stuff in life. Wonderful. Yes.
So when we start doing our spiritual practice, initially nothing seems to happen. It seems like nothing really changes. Over a period of time, even if I start feeling changes, there comes a time when I feel like I'm slipping back to my old patterns. So it seems like all those hard work and everything does not result in success because I slipped back. And then there is a sense of guilt and lack of motivation also as a result of that. So in those cases, how do we really sustain our motivation while we are
Great.
into the spiritual?
Great, and we'll take this as our last question this evening. So, on our spiritual path, if we feel like nothing is moving forward or we're slipping back and then we get guilty and upset, is the hard work ruined? Well, Pujya Swamiji always says, along with hard work, you need heart work. And this is really where it's at, because when you lose motivation, as you say, what you have to ask yourself is, well, what are you motivated for? See, as long as my spiritual practice is something that I should do, you're not going to maintain it for very long. You can only be obedient in the absence of someone watching you for a short period of time. Little bit of our own internal sense keeps us obedient for a little while. But slowly, 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 if it's not something you believe, not something you're committed to, you slip back. The spiritual practice shouldn't be something we do because we should do it. It has to be something we do because in that is what I want. You don't stop eating or stop sleeping or stop doing things that we enjoy because we know in that is something I need. The minute I go without eating for long enough, eventually my stomach is growling. Go even longer, I start to get kind of dizzy, lightheaded, I can't really function. Don't get enough sleep. I feel groggy and cranky and not so well grounded and functional. Go a couple days without any sleep. Start to be incoherent. I know I need those things because in my life I want to be healthy and coherent and efficient and not with the stomach that's screaming and growling and cramping all the time. Not unable to keep my eyes open as I move through the day. So you eat and you sleep and you drink water and you do all the things that we know we need to do. But we also do the things that we want to do. And so anytime you find yourself saying there isn't enough time, all that means is I've made a value judgment. Because of course there's time. But what it means is that the things I've already dedicated my time to are more important to me than that. And that's okay. We have to make value judgments. We can't all do everything in a 24-hour period of time. We have to choose. But if my spiritual practice is slipping after some time, what it means is it's not a priority. It doesn't have something in it that I know I need or that I actually want. And what this means is you need to look within and say, well, all right, what do I want in life? So what do you want in life? I'm asking you.
To the best of my awareness.
What do you want? Right here, right now. I'm a genie in a bottle. Not in a bottle anymore. I've come out of a bottle. What do you want?
To have that experience of oneness, which I've heard people talk about, but I do not have that as of now.
Okay. If I put 20,000 rupees behind door number 1 and the experience of oneness behind door number 2, which would you choose?
2.
Good. If I put 20 lakhs of rupees behind door number 1, Which would you choose? Great. If I put being the most famous and beloved celebrity in the world behind door number 1, which would you choose?
I would think.
No, that's okay. Nothing wrong with it. This is good. Look, we don't get anywhere if we're not honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. So you'd think, good, okay, so now what we know is money isn't such a big pull, but some fame, some acclaim, some global popularity, well, that sounds really, really appealing. Is there anyone that doesn't sound appealing to? It's a nice idea. Good, okay. So we could go through lots of different possibilities of things. Until door number 2 becomes more important to you, it doesn't have to be, interestingly, it doesn't actually have to be the most important thing in your life in order for you to dedicate some time each day to it. We all dedicate some time each day to things that are not necessarily the most important thing in our life. It just has to be more important than whatever else is occupying that 30 minutes or 40 minutes a day. So if, now that we've ascertained money isn't that big of a pull, well, so could you go into the office 45 minutes later? Think about it. Could you go in half an hour later? Could you go in on the same time but get up half an hour later? Come home half an hour earlier so you can get to bed earlier so you can get up earlier. But could you give up whatever salary you make in half an hour, 45 minutes of work to have an easy half an hour, 45 minutes of meditation? You have to think about, what is it I want and what is it that's in there for me? So if I know that that experience of oneness is more important to me than money, as you've just told us, then rather than, for example, taking a new job that's going to give me more money and maybe have more potential, but is going to require me to work many more hours a week, is going to require me to travel a lot, spend a lot of time in my car commuting each day. I'm going to have a much more stressed time at home because the hours are going to be much less at home. Well, then you make a decision that says, I know it's a good promotion, but actually I'm looking to increase the time I spend meditating, not decrease it. And so I'm going to pass. I'm looking to maybe be able to actually attend a satsang, an arti, a prayer meet, something maybe every day on my way home from work before I have dinner in the evenings. Which means I need a job that enables me to leave early enough that I can do that on the way home. So think about your life in that way. And make yourself, if you need it, a note that goes on the mirror in your bathroom that asks, for example, have you experienced oneness today? Right? You've just said that's what you want. That's your genie in the bottle wish. I want to have that sense of spiritual oneness. Well, it's yours if you give it the time. It is already there. You're not separate. It's just about experiencing the truth of who you are, which simply means you need to be quiet enough to get all of that which you are not out of your mind. So you need to make the time, give yourself the practice, the discipline, the opportunities. So if you feel really close to it, sitting in the arti, or you feel really close to it, listening to certain mantras, or you feel really close to it, doing seva and feeding people, for example, do more of that. Clock in less hours making money and more hours doing things that give you that experience of oneness. And if you find that you slip after some time, well then give yourself a note. Remind yourself what is important to you. Or you can just give yourself a little note that says door number 2. Whatever it is that reminds you of the choice that you are making. Because that's the power that we've all been given in this life, is to choose what is it that matters to us. What is it we want? There's no right answer to that. We all have the freedom to decide for ourselves. But if what we want is something on the spiritual plane, then we have to put in the time. If you had said that your highest goal was to make a lot of money, I'd say, well, you better get out of here and get working. We have to take steps toward giving us that which we want. If you said your highest goal was to be an Olympic swimmer, I'd say, get out of here, get yourself training. Start swimming some laps. But if your highest goal is to experience spiritual oneness, to experience divinity, to experience truth, well, then that's what you better start walking toward. And if you find you slip every couple months, book your tickets to come back here 60 days from now. Book them in advance, the non-refundable kind. Right? I mean, if I know that that's my pattern, beforehand, in advance, while I'm there, plan, all right, I typically can go about 2 months on a good stretch, and then I start to backslide. All right, so 60 days from now, can I book a ticket in advance to come? No, that Monday or that Friday, I'm going to take off. Then I have a long weekend, 3 days, I'm going to go. Don't wait till you've slipped, because the minute you slip, once you slip, then the mind gets even worse. Oh, those things don't matter. There's a good movie out. I'll go there instead. And then it takes a while to bring yourself back. So make plans in advance for, all right, what's going to happen before I slip? How to keep myself anchored and grounded. Pujya Swamiji always says, failing to plan is planning to fail. So if I know where my challenges are, it's not weak to give myself tools to ensure that I don't fall in the face of those challenges. It's strong. It's courageous to admit, yeah, I know these are my weak points. Okay, how can I strengthen them? So he'll take your booking for 60 days from now when you walk out of here. Good. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And thank you so much for joining me. It was really nice. I enjoyed your company.